I finally have a shirt that matches the album. It's not exactly album related, but I mean, it has station in the name. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Justin, JP, just whatever you want to call me. And this is my album review of David Bowie's 10th studio album, Station to Station, released in 1976. As with most of my reviews, you can go back and watch my first listen and my initial reactions to each of the songs in the album. But for now, let's talk about the album as a whole. This is the first Bowie album that I've listened to, and at the moment, the only one that I've listened to in full. But what an impact it's made. I mean, this is the perfect entry point, at least for myself, to get into more Bowie, and definitely gets me interested in more of his music as I've begun exploring just a little bit more of his music. Recorded in 1975 in autumn, apparently this was a very interesting recording process that this album went through. Bowie found himself described in his darkest days. There was a strong dependency on drugs, a lot of sleepless nights, and an interesting diet of peppers and milk. He even says that he doesn't remember much of the recording of this album. And yet, somehow, out of all of this, we get 6 bangers on this album. 37 minutes of just like gold. And even though he may not remember the recording process itself, here we are with a very memorable album, combining art rock, funk, soul, disco, putting all of these things together in a blender, and it comes out in a really nice, tasty smoothie. It's coherent, it's cohesive, and it's high quality. The opener and the title track to the album, Station to Station, is bar none one of the best openers ever. Like, ever. Funk-tastic. Bass, drums, that instrumental buildup is like amazing. That is a showstopper, that is a foot stomper, that is just a classic concert kind of feel song. It's one that will definitely get you moving and out of your seat, and Bowie doesn't even come in until about 3 minutes or so, when he announces the return and the entry of the Thin White Duke, the persona that he would label himself on this album. But what a grand return it is. The vocals ride that very, very strong bass and drum pattern. The guitar groove is just like a ship on the waves on the high seas. There's a very fun and bouncy cadence to Bowie's delivery on this track, and at the same time there's a very dramatic flair as well. I love how melodically progressive this track feels and how structured it is, because you can see a clear differentiation between the first half and then as it moves into the second half, which extends into an almost disco track. I love the lyrics where he says, "It's not the side effects of the cocaine, I'm thinking that it must be love." And with those lyrics, the music changes, like I said, into something a lot more up-tempo, a lot more upbeat, and just as good. I gotta shout out Carlos Alomar on the guitar as well, because it's his guitar throughout the song, but also in the solo near the end, that really just brings this song to life and sends it off just right. Now, as I said, that song, the first one on the album, that's like the meteor that came in and killed the dinosaurs, right? That's just like the greatest thing ever. No, that's that's not what I meant. But it has a meteor-like effect in just how much of an impact, a deep impact, that it's made. The second track, Golden Years, I come away actually a little mixed. I know that this is one of the songs that a lot of people seem to like on this album, and while it's a good song, I feel like it's actually the weakest track on the album. Now, I can't deny that the bass and the guitar in the opening is funky. I think that Bowie sounds really nice as well throughout most of the song. I'll admit, I get kind of annoyed with the refrain of the golden years, ba, ba, ba. I don't know what it is. I guess this is where taste just comes in, but there's something about that I don't groove with. Despite all this, Bowie sounds really good in this track. Bowie leads an effortless charge in the vocal department, telling us, or perhaps a lover, to enjoy these golden years, and he's going to stay with us for 1,000 years. Now, getting back on track, Word on a Wing is one of the most emotional songs on this album, possibly the most, but we'll talk more on that later. This is a pleadful prayer and a cry from Bowie, and it rings out. I love his vocals on here. He sheds pure emotion in this. This is one where he really opens himself up to us and allows his vulnerabilities to show. This is a man, as it says, trying to find his place in the scheme of things. Bowie described this song as possibly a call for help. And I think that is just a simple way of putting together what this song really sounds like. Drips with emotion, very passionately played piano, and meaningful words bring this song to life. There's a different kind of spirit in this song. The quietly anthemic guitar in the background, it's there. You can barely hear it, but it's there. Just rings out beneath this very introspective veneer. And as mentioned, this is a very intense vocal performance from Bowie, and I think that he really evokes the right emotions here in the right way. You can really feel his pain. You can feel his frustration in the questions that he asks. You can feel his resilience, his resignation, his regrets, his resistance. Like, you can feel so much strictly in the way that Bowie sings this song. Like I said, this is possibly the most emotional one on the album. Now, following that prayer, we get into something totally different, a huge tonal shift as we move into TVC 15. I'm just kidding. I know it's TVC 15. I just wanted to rustle your feathers a little bit. This one opens with some sweet blues piano, some really nice vocalizations. This one's really fun to listen to. This is like the most fun song on the album. This one is just straight entertaining through and through. Incredibly catchy. It's sarcastically gleeful and upbeat as it talks about this, I don't know, possessed TV or something that sucks in Bowie's friend, and then Bowie's just crying out trying to get his friend back. I love that transition. I love that transmission break that goes on in the middle, where Bowie really draws out his lines. That's like, you can tell there's depth to this album, right? Like, even through all the funk and the soul and all the pop or whatever you want to call it, he does it with such elegance and such depth that's why I feel like this is such a good album, you know? Whether it's from the dramatic into the fun and slightly silly, he does it all right. But then we get into the next track, Stay, which in my opinion perfectly combines both sides and the genres that Bowie is trying to perform here. We get the guitar riff that, once you hear that guitar riff, you know what's coming next. You know that straight goodness is coming, okay? This is easily one of the best songs on the album, and there's not a lot of songs on this album, but a lot of them could be marked up and put up for the candidate of being the best on the album. But this one I really think does feel that way. It wonderfully combines the soul, the funk, alongside with Bowie's dramatic flair in the chorus itself. The drumming is also a very big highlight here. I love what Davis is doing, driving a lot of the momentum and inertia, especially in the pre-chorus with those big fills. The drum breaks, splendid. There's a bit of uncertainty that lurks in the lyrics on this one, kind of like someone who seems to be slightly unsure of themselves and what they want, which is really exemplified in the chorus. I like when he says, "This week dragged past me so slowly, the days fell on their knees. Maybe I'll take something to help me. Hope someone takes after me." I feel like there's a lot of meaning you can get in just those lyrics there. Of course, we know the history of the recording of this album and the constant drug addiction that was taking place with Bowie at this time. But at the same time, he's saying that he hopes someone takes after him. Could that mean he hopes someone finds him and takes care of him? Someone finds themselves in the position that he's in? Maybe it's a cry for help, as he was mentioning before. Ooh, but I did tell you that there was a contender for the most emotional song on the album, and that contender is the final song on the album, Wild is the Wind, a cover of Nina Simone's song, which is another cover. It goes back. The unfiltered description of desire, of wanting, and the need for romantic satisfaction. This is Bowie's most vulnerable, alongside Word on a Wing to me. Very painful performance, very open performance, and an honest performance. Like I said, competing with Word on a Wing. The vocal isolated moments are just goosebump inducing, like tingles, you know? Especially when paired with those drum fills in certain moments, like, that's huge. This song actually feels like the musical equivalent of trying to say something to someone you love and the words getting choked in your throat right before you cry. That's how I can best describe the feeling of this song. And by the way, I highly, highly, highly recommend you listen to Nina Simone's version, because that one is just, that is sad, that is lonely, that is good. So those are just some really quick and brief thoughts on each of the songs on the album. But now let's move into my favorite moment on the album, my favorite lyrics, and my song rankings for the album. Let's begin with the favorite moment of the album. This was a little bit hard, but I had to come back to the song and to the moment that I always come back to. So I got to go with the title track, Station to Station. Specifically, I guess the first 4 minutes or something. I don't know. The whole instrumental buildup is just brilliantly done. I mean, brilliantly done. I love the sound effects. It sounds like a locomotion that's going on. And then when the bass and the drums come in, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Like, you know, that I cannot ever not move to. The break, the way that the guitar continues sound effects and riffing throughout. And then, of course, the return of the Thin White Duke himself, David Bowie. His entrance, I mean, just that whole intro is just so good. My favorite lyrics on the album, I have to go with Word on a Wing, because I feel like these are David's most like open, like I said, his most open, his most vulnerable, his most powerful and emotional. I have to go with the lines, just because I believe don't mean I don't think as well. Don't have to question everything in heaven or hell. Now, the whole song is just like dripped with good lyrics. But that line specifically always stuck out to me. These are the words and the lyrics of someone who's trying to put their faith in something, but they're not blindly following or putting their faith in something. They're not losing their personality. They're not losing who they are. They're still going to question things, but he's trying his hardest to fit into the scheme of things, as he says in the song. And I feel like these lyrics are very hard-hitting. I feel they're very memorable. And most of all, I think that they're very relatable. And then getting into my song rankings on the album, let's start at the top. You already know what that's top. Station to Station, Word on a Wing, Stay, Wild is the Wind, TVC 15, and Golden Years rounding out the bottom. Listen, the first 5 songs, which is, you know, most of the album, I think are just great. Golden Years, it's good. It's good. It's just not, I just don't mix with it. It just doesn't hit me quite the same way that apparently it hits a lot of other people. Anyways, I would love to know your thoughts on the album. Let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like, you can support the channel on Patreon. You can also follow me on Twitter. And besides all that, I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.